How you doing? That's a tribute to Joey from Friends. I don't know. We're running out of hellos here, people. We're doing this all summer long. There's only so many ways you can say it, and I can't speak every language, or we can't figure out when we hit Google Translate how to really say it without sounding like idiots. So we'll just go back into the 90s, and hopefully something works out. This is the Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Please use the promo code SICK'EM10 when you are making your order. The auction is over. I believe Smokey got some tomahawk ribeyes yesterday that he will absolutely not share with us at TexasBeefHouse.com. Today, Paul predicts the CFP. So it's not so much a top 5 as a top 12 or 12 into 5. I don't know, but whatever it is, here's my prediction of the CFP. Garrett, feel free to chime in at any time and tell me what you think of this. Number 5, let's start in the G5. I'm calling Memphis and Ryan Silverfield. Seth Hennigan's a great quarterback. They've got great players on both sides of the ball. They're probably going to give FSU a run for their money when they play them, considering that Ryan Silverfield was a Mike Norvell assistant before he took that job. In fact, took over for Mike Norvell at Memphis when Mike Norvell left. This is a really good G5 team who's going to make some noise this year. That is, to me, the team that should be in there. Now, granted, there's others, but I'm calling Memphis right now.
I think for me, it would be like Boise would be up in the mix. Memphis going forward, though, with the investment they're getting from FedEx, they are going to be dominant at the G5 level.
Yeah, absolutely. Number 4, FSU and the ACC. I only have one team here. Now, granted, if there's not 3 teams each in the SEC and Big Ten, I could see Miami, Clemson, or NC State filling a second one. I do think FSU will be in the playoff. I think having a veteran quarterback like DJU in Mike Norvell's system with the offensive line they have is going to be very, very, very productive. Maybe not Jordan Travis productive, and I don't think they're going to go 13-0 again. But I do think that they're still a very good team with some very good talent and some very good coaching and will win the ACC, and it will be tougher than it was for them last year, but I still think they'll win the ACC and get in. To the last conference with only one team because of, it just means more and all. Kansas State in for the Big 12. How could I take them off this, considering I said they were going to win the Big 12 in my offseason poll? I'm a big Avery Johnson fan. I think he's going to be a special dynamic player. I like what they have in the backfield and DJ Giddens and Dylan Edwards. I know that they've got to reload along the offensive line, but there's no better coach in the country equipped to do that than Chris Kleiman. So they're going to be good on defense because they're always good on defense. It probably comes down to them, Utah, KU, and maybe a dark horse in there somewhere. But I still think ultimately it would be Kansas State. I'm going to stick riding this until I'm wrong. But when I am wrong, I will admit it begrudgingly. But I do think Kansas State wins the Big 12, even though Utah will probably be very close and be deserving of a playoff bid. But because of, reasons, they probably won't make it in. Now to the 3-team conferences. Let's start with the Big 10. Penn State has a very, very, very favorable schedule this year. They only play Ohio State out of the gigantic big boys that are going to be ranked higher. They play West Virginia early, and that's a tough game, but that really should do more harm than good unless they get blown out in that game. And they won it last year, so it should be one of the best games of the opening weekend, Penn State and West Virginia. Oregon, loaded for bear. There's Dylan Gabriel, all the weapons they have, all the things that Dan Lanning is doing, shouldn't be a question. Ohio State helped their team in the portal more than any other team. The question is, can Will Howard elevate them past where Kyle McCord had them last year? I think yes, and I think Michigan losing as much as they did and having the coaching change will keep them just outside of this. Washington lost too much. USC has too many questions. And then the rest of the Big Ten, we'll see where you are at the end of the year. But Penn State, Ohio State, Oregon. Garrett, I'm on this, right? Those are the 3 playoff teams from that league, right?
I think you are. I think you definitely got to throw Michigan into the mix. But ultimately, I think this is one where Ohio State gets that dub this year for really just saving the job there for Ryan Day. But at the same time, I look at Penn State in a similar fashion that I'm looking at Ole Miss this year. With the expanded playoff, what you've been able to do, you have some, especially with Drew Aller coming back as your quarterback. If you can't do it this year, I don't know what the future is going to look like for you going forward. It's a make or break season for both those programs, in my opinion.
Yeah. Oh, you mentioned Ole Miss.
Yeah.
Let's talk about them in the SEC. So here in the SEC, I've got Texas, UGA, and Ole Miss. All right. Georgia, the class of the conference. No doubt about that. Texas, loaded for bear, coming in, one of the best rosters in the country talent-wise. Now, they've got to do it again, and they've got to do it in a tougher schedule, and they can't have the slip-ups maybe like they did last year in the Big 12, because while I do think the SEC is better than everybody, every single year is overrated, this is a year where you can't sleepwalk in South Carolina, you can't sleepwalk in LSU, you can't, and this is for everybody, you can't sleepwalk against any of these teams. You really, really can't. Even Florida, they can't sleepwalk against them. Like that. That's a team that's got a tough schedule, but you can't. Arkansas is trying to play for their coach's job. A&M at the end of the year is going to be, ravenous for Texas, but I still think they're good enough to beat pretty much everybody they play. And the third one, as you mentioned, and I don't need to go into why Georgia is because Georgia.
Georgia's Georgia.
That's why. If I spent any more time on this to try to tell you why Georgia is some sort of sleeper, I might as well go work for Kirby Smart in the Let's Lie About Georgia department. And then Ole Miss, Garrett just said it. What they've done in this offseason is putting the pedal to the floor, trying to get there. Now, maybe after that first wave of people, they don't have a ton of depth, but if they can stay healthy, they have one of the best quarterbacks in the conference, if not the one that's the least talked about as being a really good quarterback. And look, it's easy to fall behind Carson Beck and Quinn Ewers and, Nico Amaliava, who's a, future superstar and all these things. But Jackson Dart was really, really good last year. They brought in quarterbacks to compete with him, and he just ended their careers. Jackson Dart just ended Spencer Sanders. That was it. Spencer Sanders made a bad choice, and Jackson Dart made sure he knew that. Now, other contenders, I'll tell you that LSU is a contender, Mizzou is a contender, and A&M and Oklahoma are on the back end of that. But it would not surprise me to see LSU or Ole Miss get hot and get in there. Or, of course, Bama, obviously. But I still think Auburn, Mississippi State, Vandy, South Carolina, Tennessee, all probably a year away. Although, again, if Nico Amaliava takes the jump that I think Avery Johnson's going to take this year, I could be eating those words. So this is a tough, tough league, and nobody's going to get a break in it all year long. That is my top 5. And since I'm the only one here today, we're just going to wrap it up right now. Have a great weekend. Everybody's back on Monday.